She was the sister no one wanted at the mating ceremony, the forgettable one, the one men overlooked while they chased her beautiful, perfect sibling, until she bumps into the Alpha King. "I'll die if I can't marry you." He says he's the untouchable Devnisam-Watul, devastatingly beautiful ruler every woman in the realm desires. And now he's obsessed with Daria. There's just one problem. It's only because he's been dosed with a love potion. And worse, everyone thinks she's the one who poisoned him. Now she's trapped at his side, forced into constant proximity with a man who can't stop touching her, claiming her, insisting she's his mate. She has to clear her name, find the real culprit, and resist falling for a king who is determined to make her fall for him. Because his love isn't real, is it? Chapter 1. Being invisible wasn't difficult, not when standing next to Alina, who currently sparkled like a sun-blessed jewel in the center of the ballroom. Everything a proper lady should be: graceful, beautiful, interested in matrimony. Daria was none of those things, and it was wonderful. She'd claimed a chair in the corner, strategically positioned behind a potted fern, a book sitting hidden in her reticule. 3 more hours until she could escape this nightmare and return to managing the household accounts and ensuring her family didn't starve. This nightmare being the king's mating ceremony, the highlight of the social season. All the eligible nobility gathered in the Alpha King's grand ballroom, dressed in their finest, hoping to find their mate, or at least a politically advantageous match. If a pair bonded during the evening, tradition held that the Alpha King himself would bless the union before witnesses. Except the Alpha King was nowhere to be seen, and people were starting to notice. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Daria wondered if this meant she'd be stuck here longer than anticipated. She reached for her reticule. "Lady Daria," a voice said behind her. She froze. The suitor who'd been dancing with Alina now stood before her, looking hopeful. "Lord," Daria trailed off, not remembering his name. "Callister," he said. "I was hoping to speak with you about your sister." "Of course you were," Daria thought. "I'd like your permission to court her," Lord Collar went on. Daria glanced past him to where Alina stood, a pretty blush on her cheeks. She gave a tiny, hopeful nod. "No," Daria shrugged. His smile faltered. "I beg your pardon?" "No," Daria repeated. "You may not court my sister." But Lord Collar glanced back at Alina, confused. "I was under the impression." "Her heart is already taken," Daria interrupted smoothly. "She assured me not an hour ago that it wasn't," he said, bewildered. "She's too polite to say so directly," Daria lied. She stood, brushing past him before he could sputter another protest. Pretty Lord Mallister, with his empty pockets and his charming smile, could find another heiress to rescue his failing estate. Alina deserved better. Their father had abandoned them for his fated mate when Daria was 15, leaving behind 3 women and a mountain of debt. She wouldn't let Alina marry someone with no prospects, only to be left penniless when he found something better. If Alina insisted on marrying, it would be to someone who could offer actual security. "Lady Daria, wait!" Lord Collar called after her. She didn't wait. The retiring room suddenly seemed like an excellent destination. She wooed through the crowd and stopped at a massive guard blocking the archway. Bald, scarred, built like a mountain that had decided to take human form and glower at people for entertainment. "I need to pass," Daria said. "No one leaves," the guard replied. "Are you saying you're keeping us locked in this ballroom?" she asked. The guard grunted. "That's not an answer," Daria insisted. Behind her, Lord Callers's voice rose above the music. "Lady Daria, please, if I could just—" The guard bared his teeth in what might have been a smile or a threat. "Impressive," Daria said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Lord Mallister yelped. "I'm not leaving the building," Daria said. "I'm retiring to the retiring room. Unless you'd prefer I handle my personal needs right here in the ballroom." The guard stared. Daria stared back, did not blink. Finally, barely perceptible, He nodded. 5 minutes. I'm escorting you." "How chivalrous," Daria muttered. He led her down a corridor lit by sconces, casting dancing shadows on marble walls. They'd barely made it halfway when another guard appeared, breathless. "Galen, the king," the guard panted. Galen turned. The other guard whispered something too low for Daria to hear. Galen's expression darkened. He growled, an actual animalistic sound that raised the hair on Daria's neck, then pointed at the floor directly in front of her. "Stay here," Galen commanded. "Wouldn't dream of moving," Daria said sweetly. He narrowed his eyes but let the other guard pull him away, their voices fading around a corner. Daria counted to 3. "Lady Daria," Lord Caller's voice echoed from behind her. "Are you down here?" "Guts!" He'd followed her. She ducked into a side corridor and hurried forward. The hallways branched and turned, each one identical. Marble floors, gilt-framed portraits, sconces throwing confusing shadows. She was completely lost. She rounded a corner too quickly and slammed directly into something solid. Not something, someone. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. She stumbled, palms landing flat against a broad chest, and strong arms wrapped around her waist before she could fall. She looked up. The Alpha King stared down at her. She'd only ever glimpsed him from across ballrooms, a distant figure everyone whispered about, but no one truly knew. But now, gods! His dark bronze hair was must-jacket askew, collar loose and exposing the strong column of his throat. He looked like he'd just woken from a fever dream. His eyes, bright burning gold, were unfocused at first. Then they locked onto her, and everything changed. His pupils dilated, swallowing the gold until only a thin ring remained. His arms tightened, pulling her closer. "You," he whispered. "Your Majesty," she managed. One hand slid up her back, fingers splaying between her shoulder blades. "It's you," he said, his voice rough and raw. "We don't know each other." Daria tried to step back. He didn't budge. "I'll die if I can't marry you," the Alpha King declared. She gaped. He'd said it with absolute conviction, complete some devastating sincerity. "What?" Daria asked. "Your Majesty, you're not well," she said, pushing against his chest. His hand slid up to cup her face. "Don't leave," he whispered, his lips so close to her she could feel the shape of the words. "I just found you." He sounded wrecked, desperate, broken, and Daria, practical, cynical Daria, who'd stopped believing in fairy tales years ago, felt something crack open in her chest. Chapter 2. Footsteps thundered down the corridor. "Your Majesty," someone shouted. The Alpha King's arms tightened around her, nose pressed to her hair. "You smell wonderful," he murmured, rubbing his cheek against her scalp. What the royal heck is happening? Daria thought. A group of guards rounded the corner, Galen at the front. Two healers hurried behind, their expressions a picture of concern as they took in the scene, namely their strong and noble king entwined around a strange woman like a drunk boa constrictor. Galen cleared his throat. "Step away from His Majesty," he commanded. "I'm trying to," Daria wheezed. She squirmed in the king's embrace, which tightened noticeably. "Stay," he said petulantly. "Your Majesty." One of the healers stepped forward. "You fainted earlier. You must be examined. You're unwell." "Do I look unwell?" The king waved a hand. "We should be rejoicing, for I have found my mate." Everyone stared. "Here," said someone. Daria's face burned. "What the royal heck is happening?" she said out loud this time. "Do you not feel the certainty burning in your soul?" the king asked, cupping her face. "The only thing I'm certain about," Daria said, untangling his fingers from her cheeks, "is that I've known you for all of 30 seconds. The healers exchanged a look. "Your Majesty," she said, "please, the girl can stay. We just need to run some tests." The king's jaw clenched. Then he loosened his grip. "Don't leave me," he murmured, looking at Daria with big gold eyes. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. Despite the ridiculousness of the situation that touched her fine, she sighed. The healers moved in swiftly, one placing her hands on the king's temples, while the younger man checked his pulse. All the while, he kept his gaze fixed on Daria. A strange, euphoric smile painted on his handsome features. "Elevated heart rate," the male healer murmured. "You can say that again," Daria muttered. "His scent," the woman added. "There's something off about it. Underneath the usual markers." "What does that mean?" Galen demanded. The younger healer leaned in, inhaled. "Bloodroot," he said, "and moon petal, a love potion. It seems someone has administered a powerful love potion to His Royal Highness," the older healer said, turning to Daria. The shift in the room was immediate. Daria's stomach dropped as all eyes settled accusingly on her. Guards straightened, hands drifting toward weapons. Even the air seemed to thicken. "Well, it wasn't me," she said, hating how defensive she sounded. "You were alone with him," Galen said flatly. "For 30 seconds, Daria protested. "We literally barged into each other around the corner." "Convenient," one of the other guards muttered. "Are you accusing me of causing this?" She gestured at the king, who was currently reaching for her as she moved away. "We're not making accusations," the older healer said. "We're simply stating facts. His Majesty has been dosed with a love potion, and you were found with him." "That sounds an awful lot like an accusation," Daria retorted. "We'll question her properly in the holding cells." Galen waved 2 guards forward. The king moved. One moment he was beside Daria, gripping her hand. The next, a massive wolf stood in his place. Easily the size of a war-oar, lips peeled back to reveal fangs like daggers. Daria gasped. She'd heard about shifters transforming. Everyone had, but books didn't do it justice. The sheer size of him, the raw power radiating from his form, the way his bronze fur caught the torchlight like molten gold. She liked it. "Your Majesty," Galen began. The growl that ripped from the wolf's throat made the marble floor vibrate. Every guard took an involuntary step back. "Your Majesty!" The older healer's voice cut through the tension. "None shall harm her. I promise you." The wolf's head rotated toward her, but he held his ground, shoulders hunched. "Galen," the healer said, "His Majesty believes he's found his mate. Even though it is clearly the effects of the potion, his body is responding as though it is real. If we separate them, he'll get sick," the younger healer finished quietly. "He's not actually mated to her," Galen groaned. "His body doesn't know that," the older healer replied. "The potion has created a false bond. Breaking it abruptly could be dangerous." "Wait, what does that mean for me?" Daria asked. "That you will need to remain by the king until the potion wears off," the healer said, pursing her lips sympathetically. "Oh, heck no." Daria backed away. "I've got places to be. I'm not babysitting the king." "Breaking the perceived bond could kill him," the healer said gravely. "You would not want to be accused of Reichside." Daria goldfished for a few seconds. "Reichside?" she gasped. "Surely you can't." She turned to the king, who reshifted back to human form. Someone hastily flung a cloak over him. "Just the thought of being away from you does feel like death," he declared, making her groan. That settled then. The younger healer clapped his hands. "The lady stays until the antidote is brewed." Daria turned to the king imploringly. "Please, your majesty, my mother and sister are out there." "They will be comfortable here at the palace," the king said. "They shall have everything they need. And please, my love, call me Aaron." "My family has nothing to do with this Aaron," Daria snapped. "They will serve as collateral," Galen said bluntly, "in case you intend to poison him again." "I didn't. It's all right," Aaron said, squeezing her hand. "We'll figure this out together." He smiled, open, earnest, without a trace of doubt. Something fluttered traitorously in Daria's chest. For one unguarded moment, she felt supported, which she hadn't felt in a long time. She squashed it immediately, the way she'd learned to after her father left. "How long until the antidote is ready?" she snapped. 3 days, the healer said. "Days," Daria ogled. "Perhaps more. Love potions are complex matters." The healer nodded sagely. "Fine." Daria smiled sardonically at Aaron and was taken aback as his entire face lit up like a birthday cake. "You're staying," he breathed. "Under duress," Daria clarified primly. "You're staying," he repeated, ignoring the caveat entirely. She'd come here to find Alina a decent husband. Instead, she was accused of poisoning the king, who was mooning over her because of a false mating bond, while facing execution if she couldn't prove her innocence. There was no time to waste. She needed to find the real culprit. 3 days, piece of cake. Chapter 3. The room Daria awoke in was a far cry from her modest quarters at home. Lavish and ornate, even the borrowed nightgown was made of sheer satin, which she might have appreciated had she not been accused of poisoning the Alpha King the night before. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "My lady, His Majesty requests your presence for breakfast." "Give me half an hour," Daria said, pushing hair out of her face. "And a restraining order," she muttered under her breath. The breakfast hall was smaller than she'd expected. An intimate table set for 2, packed with enough food to feed a small army. Aaron stood when she entered. He looked better than last night, well-groomed and rested, his bronze hair shining copper in the morning light. The intensity of his stare, however, was undiminished. "Good morning, my lady," he said in a warm voice that made her chest tight. "Your Majesty," Daria said, bowing stiffly. "Aaron," he corrected gently, "please." He waited until she was seated before lowering himself into his own chair. "How was your sleep?" he asked, eyes never leaving her face. "Divine," she sighed, looking away from that too intense gaze. "Are the rooms comfortable?" "Stupendous. And your mother and sister? They have everything they need other than freedom." "Yes." Aaron's mouth curved. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" "Make what easy?" Daria grabbed the teapot, noisily pouring herself a cup. "Getting to know you," he replied. "Why would you get to know me? You're under a spell." Daria set the pot down. "We just need to stay close enough until the antidote is ready." Aaron went quiet. His hand rested on the table between them, fingers twitching like he wanted to reach for her, but was restraining himself. "But I want to know you," he said quietly, and the raw ache in his voice made her pause mid-sip. She cleared her throat. "What you feel doesn't really matter, does it again? Because you're poisoned." "I don't think you can speak for my heart," Aaron protested. "Fine." Daria smiled. "So you love me? What's my favorite food? How do I spend my time? Better yet, what's my name?" Aaron looked amused. "You think me not knowing your name means I cannot love you?" He reached for her hand and placed it over his chest. "I feel you," he said. "Here, in my soul, and I know you are mine." Heat flooded Daria's face. His chest was warm and solid beneath her palm, his heartbeat strong and racing. The earnestness in his golden eyes made her breath catch, which was ridiculous because he was spelled and this wasn't real. "Well, I suppose I should make you guess then," she snapped, yanking her hand back. That brought a laugh from him. "I would settle for that," he said, pouring himself some tea. "What's your favorite book?" "I like many books." "What kind?" "All kinds." Aaron's smile widened. "You're doing this on purpose." "I don't know what you're on about," Daria said. "You're being difficult because you think it'll make me lose interest," he said. She buttered a fresh piece of toast. "Is it working?" "If anything, it makes me like you more." His hand reached across the table. "All I can think of is you. I have barely slept for thought of you. Being apart from you is unbearable." There was such earnest vulnerability in his eyes that Daria's teasing faded. Poison or not, to him it felt real. He was suffering, and it wasn't his fault. Before she could respond, a servant appeared at the door. "Your Majesty, Lord Collar, is here. He's requesting an audience." Aaron's entire demeanor changed. Posture straightening, jaw tightening, danger flickering in his eyes. "Lord Mallister," he repeated, voice flat. "Yes, Your Majesty," he says. "It's urgent." Aaron looked at Daria. "Do you know him?" "Unfortunately," Daria muttered. "He's quite persistent." "About what?" Aaron asked, an edge to his voice that raised the hair on her arms. "Oh, not for me," she said quickly. "For Alina, my sister." The tension drained from Aaron's shoulders. "Send him in," he told the servant. Lord Collar entered moments later, looking nervous and determined in equal measure. He bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, thank you for affording me this audience." "Lord Collar," Aaron's tone was cordial. "I'm told you have a request." "Yes, Your Majesty." Collar straightened, then noticed Daria. "Lady Daria, I hope you're well." "Perfectly well," Daria said coolly. "So it's Daria, is it?" Aaron fixed her with an amused twinkle. Daria acknowledged this with her half-eaten toast, slightly annoyed her game had been ruined. "Your request?" Aaron prompted without looking back at Kaller. "I wish to formally request permission to court the Lady Alina," Callister said, "Lady Daria's sister, but Lady Daria has declined to give her blessing." "I see." Aaron cocked an eyebrow at Daria. "Then I suppose you have your answer, don't you, Lord Caller?" "Your Majesty, I surely—" He stopped mid-sentence. Aaron hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but something shifted in his expression. A subtle hardening around his eyes, a slight tilt of his head. The air grew heavier. Lord Callister took an involuntary step back. Yes, Your Majesty. Of course. Thank you for your time." He bowed hastily and practically fled the room. Something warm and confusing bloomed in Daria's chest. The king had backed her decision without question, defended her authority over her own family. It was unexpected. Once the door closed, Aaron turned to her with genuine curiosity. "Why refuse him?" he asked. "His interest in your sister seemed sincere." "My sister deserves security," Daria said. "It's common knowledge Lord Mallister's estate is flailing. I wouldn't be doing Alina any favors by allowing her to wed into poverty." Aaron studied her. What's stopping him from rebuilding? A man with determination and a reason to succeed can accomplish remarkable things. Daria sighed. "He's too handsome," she declared. "It's suspicious." Aaron's laughter surprised her. "Handsome people take everything for granted," Daria said, scowling. "They're the epitome of privilege." "Is that what you think of me?" Aaron asked, tilting his head. "Are you calling yourself too handsome?" His grin faltered. "You don't think I'm attractive?" The way he said it, like the idea genuinely wounded him, made her want to laugh. "Oh, you're perfect. Obviously," Daria said, aiming for sarcasm and failing. "Perfect," he repeated, delighted. His entire face lit up. Then his expression shifted, something more serious settling over his features. "Someone hurt you," he said quietly. Daria froze. She suddenly remembered her father's perfectly groomed appearance. His easy charm as he'd explained to 15-year-old Daria that he'd found his fated mate. The way he'd smiled as he told them he was leaving, that he had no choice, that the bond called to him. Her throat tightened. She looked away. "Sure, I've been very hurt. It explains my entire personality," she said, waving it off. "More importantly, I want to find out who's actually responsible for your condition." "My condition? Your Majesty, everyone believes I'm the one who poisoned you." "I don't," Aaron began, but she raised a hand. "You don't right now, because you think you're in love with me. But once the potion wears off, I'm worried you'll blame me like everyone else." Hurt flashed across his features. "You think I'd turn against you, should my feelings disappear. I think you'll definitely turn against me when your feelings disappear," Daria said. He looked like he wanted to protest, but sighed instead, nodding slowly. "I don't believe that, but I understand why you do." His hand hovered near hers. "Whatever you need, my lady, you have my blessing. I'll need access to the kitchens and servants," Daria said, "and I'll need to move freely through the palace without a chaperone." She finished her cutlets and washed them down with her second cup of tea. "I'll inform the guards," Aaron conceded, "and without you following me everywhere," she added. He winced. I respect your need for space, but it tugs at my heart when you are far from me. Last night when they took you to your rooms, I made it about 10 minutes before I had to check on you." Daria stared. "You checked on me?" "I stood outside your door for an hour," he admitted, color rising in his cheeks. "To make sure you were all right," he added hurriedly. Daria closed her eyes. That was pathetic, pathetically sweet, and most importantly, not his fault. The potion had made him stand outside her door like a lovesick fool because the separation physically pained him. Someone had done this to him deliberately, made him vulnerable, turned his own instincts against him. What if they struck again? A protective anger flared in Daria's chest. "Fine," she said, her voice softer than before. "You can come with me, but you stay quiet and let me lead." "I can do that," Aaron beamed. "Why do you sound so happy about this?" "Because you just agreed to spend the day with me," he said simply. Despite everything, the absurdity of it all, her fears about the future, the knot of confusion in her chest, Daria felt the corner of her mouth twitch upward. "I come," she said, standing. "We have a mystery to solve." Chapter 4. "What's your name?" Daria asked. "Melba, my lady." The girl was thin, mousy-haired with nervous hands that twisted in her apron. Daria was in the palace kitchens, a labyrinth of copper pots and harried servants. After questioning the head cook, Berta, a stout woman with flour-dusted hands, who had taken offense at the suggestion that anyone could have managed to poison her own king in her own kitchen, she'd begrudgingly directed them to Melba, specifically responsible for the king's cup. "You prepared the king's drinks?" Daria continued. Yes, my lady. Some of them." Melba wouldn't meet her eyes along with others. "We all took turns." Daria studied her. The girl was sweating despite the cool kitchen air. "Walk me through your evening," Daria said. "What time did you arrive? What did you prepare? Who did you interact with?" "I came in at sunset to help with final preparations," Melba stammered. "We were making punch wine service. Did you see anything unusual?" Daria interrupted. "No, my lady," Melba said. "Did anyone ask you to prepare something specific for His Majesty?" Melba's hands twisted harder. "No, my lady." She was scared. Daria could see it in every tense line of her body. "Thank you, Melba," Daria said. "That will be all for now." The girl fled. As they left the kitchens, Aaron leaned close. "Melba was nervous," he said. "Very," Daria agreed, though whether because she's guilty or because she's being interrogated by the king is another matter entirely. Their next stop was the guard barracks, where they found Galen examining a weapons rack, with as much enthusiasm as if he were peeling a bag of onions. "I need to ask you about last night," Daria said. "Where were you when the king went missing?" "Perimeter," Galen grunted. "See anyone suspicious?" she asked. "No," came the monosyllabic reply. "Anyone near the king before he disappeared?" "Guards," Galen continued, scribbling on his checklist. "Which guards?" she asked. He shrugged. "Were you aware the king had been dosed with anything?" she asked. "Not until after," Galen said. "Bravo." Daria clapped once sarcastically. "You tripled your word count in one reply." "Everyone acts strange at mating ceremonies," Galen replied, sounding honest. "Did you see who the king spoke with?" Daria asked. "No." Galen's eyes flicked to Aaron, then back to Daria. "As I said, I was protecting the perimeter as ordered." "By whom?" "The king," Galen nodded towards Aaron, who coughed. I did tell him to focus on external security. The ballroom itself was considered safe, Aaron said. That was your first mistake, Daria said brightly. Galen grunted agreement. She tried a few more questions, but it was like interrogating a particularly uncooperative boulder. Finally, she gave up. As they left, she said to Aaron, "Does he always speak in pig?" "He doesn't trust easily," Aaron said, "especially not those he suspects of wishing me ill." By afternoon, Daria's head was spinning. She'd interviewed a dozen servants, several guards, and the head of household staff, and had nothing concrete to show for it. They ended up in a private sitting room in the West Wing. Aaron settled into a chair by the window, looking drained, and closed his eyes. "All right," Daria said, setting herself up at the desk. "Tell me about your evening from start to finish." "Call me Aaron," he said, eyes still closed. "And is this an interrogation? What time did you arrive at the ballroom?" Daria continued without deigning to reply. "Around 7, who greeted you?" "The master of ceremonies, Lord Harwick," he replied. "Did you eat or drink anything immediately upon arrival?" "A glass of red," Aaron said, frowning as he thought. "Did anyone else offer you food or drink directly?" Several people. It's tradition to toast the king at these events," he replied. "A cup of me. That was Lady Morven. Or maybe Lady Harding. No, both. And Lord Ashford offered brandy." "When did you start feeling strange?" she asked. "Around 8. Time gets fuzzy," he said, wincing as his hand pressed harder against his temple. Daria looked up from her notes. His face had gone ashen, a thin sheen of sweat beading on his forehead. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Just a headache," he said, trying to smile. Royalty isn't used to being questioned. But the hand at his temple was trembling. His jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. "Should I call the healers?" she asked. He broke off with a sharp intake of breath before he could answer, then doubled over, a low sound of pain escaping his throat. Daria swept to the door. "Get the healers quickly!" she called to a nearby servant who sprinted off. She turned back. Aaron's pain was evident in every contorted line of his face. She reached out instinctively, her hand grasping his shoulder. The change was immediate and shocking. Aaron's body, tense and rigid as a taut bowring, melted. The trembling stopped. He slumped back into the armchair with a deep, shuddering exhale that sounded almost obscene in its relief. "Oh gods," he breathed, his voice rough and wrecked. "What did you do?" His eyes opened and they were clear again. No pain, just wonder and something darker, hungrier. She pulled her hand back as if she'd been burned. Instantly, pain shivered across his face again. Not as severe as before, but enough to make him wince. His hand flung back to his temple. "No, please." The word came out desperate, almost a whimper. Breathing deep against it, he nodded to her hand. "Touch me again," he begged, and there was nothing regal about it. It was pure need. She hesitated, then slowly placed her hand back on his shoulder. Relief crashed over his features like a wave. His head fell back against the chair, exposing the strong column of his throat, and a sound escaped him low and satisfied, almost a groan. "Are you just doing that on purpose so I touch you?" Daria asked suspiciously, trying to ignore the way that sound made heat pull low in her belly. Aaron shook his head, his hand coming up to cover hers. I swear to you that pain was real. His thumb stroked over her knuckle. This is the first time I've felt right since you left my side this morning. That's not normal, Daria said. No, Aaron agreed, smiling blissfully. But I don't care. A healer arrived, the same older woman from the night before. She took one look at them inside. I was afraid of this, she said. The potion has created a false mating bond. Your Majesty's body believes Lady Daria is his mate. And when shifters are separated from their mates or denied contact, they sicken. But we aren't actually mates, Daria said, pointing her free finger back and forth between the two of them. His body doesn't know that, the healer explained. To his mind, the bond is real. Proximity helps maintain his health, but touch is more effective. The longer you go without contact, the worse his symptoms will become. Eventually, she trailed off meaningfully. Eventually what? Daria demanded. Eventually, it could kill him, the same way a true shifter would die, if forcibly separated from their mate for too long. Daria's blood ran cold. So what do we do? She asked. The healer looked between them. Holding hands would suffice during the day. At night, the healer coughed. Closer proximity would be advisable. What in the gods' sacred names do you mean by closer proximity? Daria asked with a dangerous smile. Sleeping in the same room, in the same bed. The healer paused, lips pursed, and gesturing vaguely with her hands. Close physical contact, ideally skin to skin. The image slammed into Daria's mind before she could stop it. Her and Aaron in bed together, his mouth on hers, his weight pressing her into the mattress, his hands sliding up her thighs. I am not doing that, she protested, her voice coming out too high. The antidote will take several more days to prepare. The healer lifted her palms up apologetically. Until then, this is the safest option, unless you want to risk his death. Daria looked at Aaron, expecting the same horror to reflect back on his face. Instead, his golden eyes were dark with want. I wouldn't object, he said quietly, to any of it. Daria whipped her hand away instantly. Aaron gasped, his entire body jerking like she'd struck him. Pain crashed back over his features, worse than before. Aaron! Daria grabbed his hand without thinking, lacing their fingers together. The relief was instantaneous. He straightened, breathing hard, his grip on her hand almost painful in its intensity. This isn't real, she argued vehemently. None of this is real. You're right, the healer agreed. The king does not actually love you. This is a magical compulsion, nothing more. Once the antidote is administered, these feelings will fade. The healer continued, His Majesty will return to normal. You should not. She stopped. Aaron had brought Daria's hand to his lips, pressing soft, reverent kisses to her palm. His eyes were closed, his expression almost pained in its tenderness. Daria's breath caught. Guard your heart accordingly, the healer told her quietly. Right, Daria said, staring at the top of the king's bronze head. Guarded, absolutely. Aaron kissed her palm again, then her wrist, his lips warm and soft against her pulse point. A low sound rumbled in his chest. Pleasure, relief. Want all tangled together. Gods, you taste like honey, he murmured against her skin, and Daria felt the words everywhere. The healer stood with a long-suffering expression. I'll check on you in your chambers this evening. In the meantime, Don't let him deteriorate. After she left, Daria looked at their joined hands. You're enjoying this, she accused, trying to sound annoyed. Indubitably, he admitted without shame. I've wanted to touch you since the moment I saw you. His eyes met hers over their joined hands, and the heat in them made her forget how to breathe. The investigation, she said weakly. We need to keep working. We can investigate while holding hands, can't we? He blinked innocently. Fine, Daria said. This was going to be harder than she'd thought. Chapter 5. Daria pored over the palace records, lips moving silently as her finger glided down each column. Guest lists, servant schedules, guard rotations, 1,000 patterns, none of them useful. Aaron sat beside her at the wide oak table, one hand holding the ledger open, the other linked with hers. This is ridiculous, she muttered when he put his head on her shoulder. Can we not try a different arrangement? Smile undented. Aaron reached over with his spare hand and turned the page for her. I can be your personal page turner. The gesture brought their faces close, the honeyed gold of his eyes overpowering. The page, she growled. Of course, he smiled. It took Daria several seconds to release the breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. What are we looking for exactly? Aaron asked. Patterns, she said. Who had access to your drinks? Who benefits from you being incapacitated? Who would want to dose you with a love potion in the first place? Perhaps someone who wants my undying love, Aaron suggested. Or most likely someone who wants your crown, Daria countered. Love potions are powerful enough to distract you from running the day-to-day. Actually, Aaron protested, a grin tugging at his mouth. I don't think I've ever been more focused on one thing in my life. Daria's throat tightened. Keep reading. She pulled another ledger toward her. Guard reports from the night of the ceremony. Lord Harwick and the king had wolfsbane liquor together at 7:15. Lady Morven offered me at 7:45. Lord Ashford shared brandy at 8. Then nothing. No sightings between 8:15 and 8:35, when Daria had literally run into him in the corridor, already completely enchanted. 20 minutes unaccounted for. Aaron, she said slowly, what happened between 8:15 and when you found me? He frowned. I'm not sure. I remember needing air. The ballroom was stifling, so I tried to reach the gardens. Did you see anyone on the way? Daria encouraged. He pressed his free hand to his temple. There was someone, I think. It's all blurry. Daria turned back to the guard reports, scanning for any mention of the east corridor. There, a note from a junior guard, barely a scribbled line. 8:20, observed Captain Galen, assisting His Majesty near east entrance. Galen was with you, she gasped. What? Aaron blinked. Wait, Galen? He gave me something. He what? Why didn't you mention it before? Daria gaped. I'd forgotten, Aaron said, his hand tightening on hers. He gave me a drink. He said it would help, that I looked like I needed it. That backstabbing monosyllabic plotter, Daria hissed. Daria, wait, Aaron attempted, but she ignored him. He gave you the potion, Aaron, and he's been acting innocent this whole time, letting everyone think it was me. She stood abruptly, yanking him up with her. We're confronting him now. They found Galen in the training yard overseeing drills, wooden swords clacking, feet pounding in rhythm. He looked up as they approached. Your Majesty, he says, I dead. Lady Daria, I knew it. Daria advanced on him. I knew you were suspicious, accusing me when you gave him the potion. Galen's eyebrows rose fractionally. What? He asked. Don't play dumb with me. She shoved the guard report at him. You gave the king a drink the night of the ceremony, right before he was found enchanted. Galen's jaw tightened as his eyes scanned the report. I didn't, he started. Yes, you did. Daria's voice pitched higher. And you never said a word about it. Not when they found us. Not when they accused me. Not once. Galen's shoulders shifted. I admit I gave him a drink, he said slowly. But he'd already been poisoned by then. He was stumbling, uncoordinated. I thought he was drunk, so I... Beside her, Aaron coughed, a suspicious, guilty little sound. He cleared his throat, looked anywhere but at her. I may have had a lot to drink that evening. Are you saying you were drunk? Daria asked, affronted. Not drunk, Aaron protested. Just... Well, you couldn't walk straight, Galen said flatly. I was quite tired that night. Aaron's free hand flew up. You try not sleeping for a week while hosting diplomatic meetings with 20 different foreign dignitaries, and see how that goes. Anyway, Daria interrupted, you still gave him the potion. I did no such thing, Galen said. I gave him an energy drink. I thought it would help him feel better. And why didn't you just say so? Daria demanded. Because when I found out he'd been poisoned, I thought someone had already dosed him before I found him, Galen replied. 20 foreign dignitaries, Aaron snapped defensively. In 4 days. Not the point, Aaron. Daria rubbed her temples. He's lying. It wasn't an energy drink. I'm not lying, Galen said. I know because I have them often. Aaron tilted his head, nostrils flaring, scenting. I don't think he's lying, Aaron said. He smells sincere. You can smell other people's emotions. Daria stared at him. Of course, Aaron beamed, gesturing toward Galen. He's sincere. Then he pointed at Daria. You're annoyed, but also smelling delicious. He leaned in toward her neck, eyes going hazy. She sighed deeply. Fine, she said, forcing herself back to the matter at hand. Galen, where did you get the energy drink? I'll tell you where I... Galen paused mid-sentence, his expression cracking just for a second. Well, Daria pushed, stepping forward. Now he smells nervous. Aaron murmured near her ear. I'm not, Galen barked. I'm just... His jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't spit out. Galen, Aaron said, his voice gently. I know it wasn't you. Just tell us where you got the drink. Galen hesitated. Then he sighed. I made it. Hamas, he declared. You made it? Daria asked, doubtful. Yep, made it myself, Galen nodded. With what? She asked. Galen paused. Stuff, he said finally. Stuff? Daria repeated. Are you sure? Aaron asked carefully. I'm very sure. Galen said. I made it. I made the energy drink. You made the energy drink? Daria said slowly, which was actually a love potion. I must have mixed up the ingredients by mistake, Galen declared. How convenient. Daria threw her free hand up. The ingredients you can't even name. Galen, old friend. Aaron grimaced. You realize this doesn't look good. For the first time. Galen's shoulders sagged. I realize that, Your Majesty, he said. I never meant to harm you. But if you need to arrest me, then he didn't finish the sentence. Aaron's throat worked, his oldest friend, his most trusted guard, but the evidence was damning. "Guards," he called, "please escort Captain Galen to No." The scream tore through the training yard. Melba stood in the archway, face pale as milk, streaked with tears. "Melba," Galen said, alarm flashing across his face. Melba ran across the yard, skirts tangling, boots kicking up dust. "Galen didn't make the potion," she cried. "Melba!" Galen moved to stop her. "I did," Melba shouted, her voice echoing off the stone walls. "I made it. I knew it." Daria pointed at her triumphantly. "I knew you were suspicious. Literally, you were just accusing Galen," Aaron muttered beside her. "Shut up," Daria snapped. "It wasn't Melba's fault," Galen interrupted, and everyone stopped to stare at him, because that was possibly the longest sentence he'd ever spoken at once. "She makes energy drinks for me often," Galen continued. "She must have mixed up the ingredients by accident." "No, I didn't," Melba said sadly. "I meant to make that love potion." Silence fell over the training yard like snow. "I'm so sorry, Your Majesty," Melba whispered, turning to face Aaron, hands twisting in her apron. "Galen, I never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't know what I was thinking." "Well," Daria said, glancing at Aaron, "I suppose you're not the only girl in this palace who wishes the king would fall for her." Melba looked genuinely startled. "What? No," she paused. "The potion was meant for Galen." Daria blinked, processed, blinked again. She looked between golden, bronze-haired Aaron and bald, scarred, bulldog-like Galen. "You meant it for him?" Daria pointed at Galen, then swung her finger to Aaron. "Rather than him?" Melba looked miffed. "I didn't know Galen was going to give it to His Majesty." "How would I know that?" "You expect anyone to believe that?" Daria asked incredulously. Then Melba's expression transformed, tears still tracking down her flushed cheeks, but her face gone fierce. "Galen is a strong, honorable man," she said. "He always looks out for people. He works harder than anyone else in this palace. He never asks for anything for himself. He's good, truly good, and kind, even when people don't see it. And he has the most beautiful smile." She stopped breathless. Everyone gaped. "That was beautiful," Aaron said, sounding genuinely touched. "So let me get this straight," Daria said, looking at Melba. "You're in love with this man. Have been for a long time." Melba nodded. "And instead of I don't know, telling him you drugged him." "I tried to tell him," Melba cried, "but he's always so focused on work. I thought if I could create an opening, a reason for him to pay me attention." "You thought to manipulate him into loving you," Daria said, unable to keep the hardness from her voice. "That's deceitful and frankly abusive," Melba crumpled. "I realize that," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Galen. What I did, it wasn't love. It was insanity," Daria finished firmly. "Assertiveness," Galen said at the exact same time, nodding. "Exactly." "Wait, what?" Daria's neck cracked with how fast she turned. "Assertiveness," she repeated, incredulous. Galen was looking at Melba. "I like a woman who goes after what she wants," he said, and he sounded genuinely interested. "She tried to drug you," Daria screeched. "Because she loves me," Galen replied simply. "She wanted to do something about it. She's a woman of action. She could have just kissed you." Daria threw her free hand up, but she went for the option with the best outcome, Galen said. "That's strategic." Melba was blushing furiously. "So you're not mad?" she asked barely above a whisper. Galen's smile widened slightly. "No," he said. Daria watched them, something uneasy in her chest. Melba had confessed to save Galen from arrest, thrown herself between him and punishment, without a second thought. And Galen had been willing to claim he'd made the potion himself. They weren't even together, and yet they were already willing to sacrifice themselves for one another. "That's," she started. "Romantic," Aaron offered helpfully. "Definitely not," Daria said automatically. But she felt unsure. She had convinced herself this kind of thing didn't exist. Her father hadn't loved her enough to stay after all. But this was two people putting each other first. She didn't know what to do with that. "Still," Melba said quietly, "in the process, I've harmed His Majesty." "No harm done," Aaron said breezily. "It's allowed me to find my mate." "We are not mates," Daria said through gritted teeth. "It feels like you are," Aaron replied with a soft smile. "I know I feel at a loss when you're not near." And he paused mid-sentence, winced, his free hand coming up to his temple. "Aaron!" Daria's heart lurched. They hadn't been holding hands. Not for a while. They'd let go during the confrontation with Galen. How long had it been? Aaron's face went ashen, then his eyes rolled back, and then his knees buckled, and he collapsed. Chapter 6. Aaron. Daria dropped beside him, her hands finding his face. His skin was cold, too cold and clammy with sweat. "Aaron, wake up! Get the healers!" Galen barked at Melba, who was already sprinting toward the palace entrance. Daria's hands were shaking. She pressed her palm to Aaron's chest, feeling for his heartbeat. Guards materialized around them. They lifted Aaron carefully, and Daria scrambled to her feet. The journey back to his chambers was a blur of corridors and concerned faces. The healers were waiting when they arrived, the older woman from before, plus 2 assistants. They descended on Aaron immediately, laying him on the bed. "What happened?" the head healer demanded. I let his hand go," Daria said, hating how her voice shook. "During the investigation. I don't know how long, maybe half an hour." The healer's expression darkened. "Too long. His body is in crisis. The false bond is convinced you've abandoned him." "I didn't abandon him," Daria protested. "I was right there. His wolf doesn't know that." The healer pressed her hand to Aaron's forehead. "Frowning. For obvious reasons, you two haven't been very intimate. So now, even a small separation triggered a fever response." "What do we do?" Daria demanded, moving closer to the bed. "How much physical contact have you been maintaining?" the healer asked, looking at her appraisingly. Daria's face heated. We hold hands during the day." The healer nodded slowly. "That may not be enough anymore. The bond is intensifying. It wants more contact, more intimacy." "Without it," she trailed off meaningfully. "Without it, what?" Daria asked. "He'll die," the healer said bluntly. "His body will shut down, trying to bridge a gap that doesn't exist." Daria's breath caught. She looked at Aaron, pale and still on the bed. "Get in bed with him," the healer said. "Hold him. Full body contact and skin to skin would be ideal." Heat flooded Daria's face, but she was already moving toward the bed. "All right," she said. "My lady, perhaps we should stay to monitor." One of the assistants began. "Get out," Daria snapped, not looking at them. "But I know what skin to skin means." "All right," she whirled on them. "This should be a private matter." The healers exchanged glances. "Well, wait outside." the head healer said quietly. Call if his condition worsens. They filed out, the door clicking shut behind them. Daria stood beside the bed, looking down at Aaron. His chest rose and fell in rapid, shallow breaths, a fine tremor running through him despite the fever. This was for his health. That was all, just medicine. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the buttons of his shirt, the fabric damp with sweat. She worked carefully, peeling it open to expose his chest. Golden skin, defined muscle, broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist. She pulled the shirt fully open, then moved to her own clothes. Her dress came off with fumbling fingers, leaving her in just her chemise. She climbed onto the bed and pressed herself against his side, palm flat on his chest, head resting on his shoulder. "Wake up," she whispered. Then Aaron groaned low and pained. "Aaron," she cupped his face with both hands, thumbs stroking his cheekbones. "Can you hear me? Please wake up." Another groan softer. His head turned into her palm, but he remained unconscious. She shifted, throwing her leg fully over his, plastering herself against his side. "You're such an idiot," she told him, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me you were getting worse? Why didn't you?" She stopped herself, because he had told her. All those little comments about missing her when they were apart, about needing to see her, about how it hurt when she wasn't near. She'd thought it was the potion talking. She'd been so focused on the investigation, and he'd been suffering. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his skin. Almost without thinking, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. A sigh escaped him against him, warm breath mingling with hers, and Aaron's lips moved. His hand came up to cup the back of her head, fingers threading through her hair, pressing her closer. The kiss deepened. His mouth opened against hers, and the gentleness shifted into something more desperate, more real. Daria pulled back slightly, her heart hammering. "Don't stop," Aaron rasped, his voice rough as gravel. Then he kissed her again. Nothing gentle about it this time. His hand fisted in her hair, angling her head as he claimed her mouth, with a desperation that stole her breath. Her hands found his shoulders. She could feel the heat of his skin burning through her thin chemise. "Aaron," she managed to pull back. "How are you feeling? You fainted." He growled and pulled her back down, cutting off her words with another searing kiss. His mouth moved to her jaw, her neck, and Daria's eyes fluttered closed. "Aaron," she tried again, pushing weakly at his chest. We should have the healer check." "I don't need them," he said against her throat. "I need you this more." In one fluid movement, he flipped them. Daria found herself on her back, Aaron's weight pressing her down, his hips settling between her thighs. "Aaron, we should stop," she said, even as her body arched into his touch. "The potion. I have been holding back for so long," he said against her skin. "I can't anymore. I need you." Then he inhaled deeply, his pupils dilating. "Besides," he said, his voice dropping, "you want me to?" "Your scent," he groaned, pressing his face into the crook of her neck. "Gods, I can smell how much you want me." Daria's face burned. "But you don't really want me," she said, and hated how her voice shook. "It's the potion. You think you do." But he pulled back slightly, frowning. "You're a beautiful woman, half naked in my bed, touching me, smelling like this." His thumb stroked her cheek. "Of course I want you." She gave him a shaky smile. It's for his own good, she told herself. He was sick. He needed touch and intimacy. Surely he won't fault me for helping him when he eventually remembers he couldn't care less about me. Though the thought Aaron looking at her with indifference was suddenly unbearable. "All right," she whispered, reaching up to kiss him. Aaron pulled away, and she could see it was a struggle, the war visible in his eyes. "Unless you don't want to," he said, searching her face. "You don't have to. I know you don't feel the same way, and I would never force you." He looked so sad at the thought, so lost. Daria realized to him these feelings were real and overwhelming and all-consuming, and he thought she didn't feel them back. Her heart cracked. She pulled him down into a hug, burying her face in his neck. "I do want to," she mumbled against his skin. "I want you. That's the problem." He pulled back to look at her. "Why?" he asked. Tears spilled over, tracking down her temples into her hair. "Because it'll be awful when it stops," she whispered. Aaron's expression softened. "Then let's not stop," he said simply, "ever." He looked so sincere, like it really was that simple. "I'll love you forever," he said, and the promise in his voice made her chest ache. Daria sighed, half laugh, half sob, and let him kiss her. This time she kissed him back with everything she had. She got lost in it, in him, in the slide of lips and tongue, the press of his body, the way his hands mapped her. His hands found the hem of her chemise, and she let him pull it over her head. There was finally nothing between them but skin and want, and the heat building between their bodies, and then pleasure. His hands on her skin, the sound of their breathing harsh and desperate, the way she lost herself completely when he moved inside her. They didn't sleep much that night. Later, Daria awoke slowly. Aaron's arms were wrapped around her, her cheek resting on his chest. His heartbeat was strong and steady now, no longer racing with fever. His breathing was deep and even. She tilted her head back to look at him. "I love him," she thought. The realization settled over her like sunrise, inevitable and illuminating and terrifying all at once. She loved him, this beautiful, earnest, devoted man who looked at her like she was his entire world. Someone coughed. Daria's head whipped around. The healer stood just beside the bed. "Oh gods!" Daria yelped, grabbing the sheets. "How long have you been standing there?" "We just arrived," the head healer said calmly. "And we have excellent news. We've completed the antidote. We can cure His Majesty." Daria's heart sank. Chapter 7. The crystal vial gleamed in the healer's hand, filled with liquid that shimmered like moonlight on water. Daria stared at it from where she sat, tangled in silk sheets, still pressed against Aaron's side. "That was fast," she said, and her voice came out hollow, distant. "Now that Melba gave us her recipe, it made it simple," the healer explained, stepping closer to the bed. Aaron stirred beside her. He cracked one golden eye open, saw her face, and smiled, a devastating sleepy smile that made her heart clench. Then his gaze drifted to the vial. The smile vanished. "Your Majesty, if you'll be so kind," the healer held the vial toward him. "No," Aaron said plainly, and buried his face in Daria's hair, inhaling deeply. "I beg your pardon?" "I said no." His voice was muffled against her neck. "Now leave us." The healers looked at each other uncertainly. "Your Majesty, you're under the influence of a love potion." one of the younger healers began. "And I've never been happier," Aaron interrupted without opening his eyes. "Why would I put an end to it?" The head healer looked at Daria helplessly. Daria forced herself to speak past the lump in her throat. "Aaron, you have to take it." He turned to her looking betrayed. "I don't have to do anything." His voice rose petulant. "I am the king." Despite everything, Daria felt a small smile tug at her lips. She reached up, cupping his face. "Yes, you do," she said softly and pulled her hand free from his grip. "This isn't real. You think you love me, that we should spend our lives together, but it's not your choice." She watched the words hit him, startled, then hurt. "Daria, you deserve to fall in love with someone you choose," she interrupted, keeping her voice steady, even as everything inside her screamed. "Not because magic forced you to." Aaron shook his head, sitting up fully, reaching for her with both hands. "I do want you," he said, earnest and almost desperate. "Why do you keep saying these things? You don't even know me," Daria said, and her voice cracked. She stopped. Because she was being a hypocrite. Wasn't she? She'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with this man in less than a week. Tears spilled over hot and fast. "Take it, Aaron," she said, looking away. "Please." "Why?" he demanded, his hands cupping her face. "Give me one good reason." "Because I'll never be happy," she cried. "How can I be happy knowing the man I love wouldn't feel this way without some enchantment? Wondering every day if today's the day the potion wears off and you look at me like a stranger. Every time you touch me, every time we kiss, I will always believe it's the potion talking and not you. How can I live like that?" Silence fell over the room. "You love me," Aaron said quietly, wonder in his voice. "That's not you love me," he repeated with certainty. She looked away. "Daria," he said, and there was so much emotion in her name, it physically hurt. "Potion or not, magic or not, I love you. And I know that won't change when the potion is gone." "You can't know that," Daria whispered. "Then let me prove it." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "I'll take this cure." But afterward, his voice turned fierce. "Afterward, you let me court you properly. No potion, no magic, just you and me." "Aaron," she sighed. "Swear it," he demanded. "Swear you'll give us a real chance." Daria shook her head, feeling more tears slip free. She couldn't fight him anymore. "Fine." She threw her hands up. "I swear, happy." "You won't run away the moment I'm cured?" he asked quietly. "I won't," she lied, because of course she would run, she had to. She wouldn't survive his indifference. "All right," Aaron said, resigned. He uncorked the vial and raised it to his lips. "I will love you forever," he said. Then he drank. For a moment, nothing happened. "Please," she thought, "please let this be wrong." Then Aaron's eyes went unfocused. The vial slipped from his fingers. "Aaron," Daria caught him as he fell backward. "The antidote drains the drinker of their energy," the healer said calmly. "He'll need sleep." "How long?" Daria demanded. "Several hours. When he wakes, the potion's influence will be completely gone." "Couldn't you have mentioned that before?" Daria snapped. Aaron's eyes were already drooping. Still, he reached for Daria's hand. "Don't leave," he murmured. "Promise, you won't." His eyes closed, his breathing evened out. "He's stable," the healer said, stepping forward to check his pulse. "The antidote is taking effect. When he wakes, he should have no memory of the time under the potion's influence. Daria gasped. No memory? What do you mean? It's a side effect, the healer explained. The potion creates false emotions. The antidote cleanses them, but emotions are linked to memories, so it will erase them too. Why did you not tell us any of this until after he took the potion? Daria spluttered. I was worried he wouldn't agree to it if he knew, the healer said, looking somewhat apologetic. It was for his own good, Daria wanted to scream. Instead, she sat in silence, watching Aaron sleep. His face was peaceful, relaxed. She reached out, brushing a strand of bronze hair from his forehead. Finally, when she couldn't bear it anymore, she leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to his forehead. Goodbye, Aaron, she whispered. She left. The next morning, a servant arrived at the modest townhouse where Daria's family had been staying. Daria had spent the night staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. His Majesty has awakened, the young woman said when Daria opened the door. How is he? Daria asked and hated how desperate she sounded. Quite well, my lady. The servant smiled. The healers say the cure was completely successful. He remembers nothing of the potion's influence. Nothing, the word echoed in Daria's head. You may resume your normal life, the servant concluded before departing. And Daria stood in the doorway, telling her heart to stop being stupid. Aaron was fine. That's what mattered, Daria. She turned to find Alina in the doorway to the sitting room, still in her nightgown, her blonde hair mused from sleep. What's happening? We're going home, Daria said, forcing brightness into her voice. Pack your things, but what about the king? Alina asked softly. I thought you and he. It was a misunderstanding, Daria interrupted, turning away so Alina wouldn't see her face. Nothing more. Silence. When Daria glanced back, Alina was looking at her with such sadness and understanding that it made her chest ache. Stop looking at me like that, Daria said, her voice breaking. I'm fine. And then she wasn't. The tears came, great heaving sobs she couldn't control. Her knees buckled, and suddenly Alina was there catching her. I'm fine, Daria sobbed into her sister's shoulder. Shh, Alina whispered. I know. And Daria cried. Chapter 8. 1 month later. The only time Daria felt anything close to peace was when she was riding. The horse had been a gift from Lord Mallister the day he and Alina had gotten engaged with Daria's blessing. She'd realized that it wasn't because she and their mother were unhappy in love that Alina should be too. Galen and Melba had married 2 weeks ago. Daria had heard about it through palace gossip that filtered down to the town news. Not every love story ended badly, just Daria's. But at least she had a horse now, and she loved that horse. She guided it through the forest path, letting the rhythm of hoof-beats and the whisper of wind through leaves wash over her. Out here, she didn't have to think. A deer burst from the underbrush ahead, white tail flashing as it bounded away through the trees. Daria pulled up, watching it disappear into the deeper woods. The sound of baying hounds echoed in the distance. A hunt. She was about to turn the mare around when she heard hoof-beats approaching fast. I'm afraid you're much too late, Daria called out without turning. Your prey's long gone by now. Well, that's a shame, came a voice behind her, warm and familiar in a way that made her stomach drop. For me, that is not for the deer, obviously. Daria's hands tightened on the res. Her entire body went rigid. No, you wouldn't mind telling me which direction it went. The voice was closer now. She could hear his horse moving through the bracken, coming up beside her. Daria kept her eyes fixed straight ahead, heart pounding so hard it hurt. That way, I think, she said, jerking her chin toward the deeper woods. Then she turned the mare sharply away, back toward the main path. But the rider deliberately stepped into her path, blocking hers, forcing her to still, forcing her to look. Daria met Aaron's eyes for the first time in a month. He looked every inch the king, regal and composed. Astride a magnificent black stallion dressed in fine hunting leathers. His bronze hair was windswept, his golden eyes bright with the thrill of the chase. Daria remembered those eyes looking down at her in bed, remembered him kissing her knuckles one by one. She hated how much it hurt to look at him. Well, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Good luck. She moved to guide the mare around him. Wait, Aaron called. Daria's hands trembled on the reins. Please, she heard him say, and the word was so gentle it made her chest ache. She stopped the mare but didn't look back. Do I know you? Aaron asked, uncertainty in his voice. The question broke something in Daria's chest. She closed her eyes briefly. No, she said. Then she urged the mare forward. Wait, Aaron called again, but Daria was already moving. Tears blurred her vision as she guided the horse into a faster pace. This was precisely why she'd been keeping away from court, because she couldn't bear to see that look of polite indifference. Though perhaps this was even worse, because there had been something in his expression, an echo of recognition, and for one foolish second it had given her hope. Wait, please come back. The shout made her glance over her shoulder. Aaron was riding after her. Daria gaped, then whipped back around and kicked the mare into a gallop. She couldn't do this, seeing him hurt too much. Miss, she heard him cry out. Go away, Daria called back, urging the mare faster. But as she fled, a memory surfaced, Aaron in bed, holding that crystal vial, looking at her with desperate intensity. Promise me you'll let me court you. She shook her head, trying to dislodge the image. Promise me you won't run. Darn it, she muttered, and pulled the mare to a stop. Her heart hammered as she waited, hands shaking on the res. You're a very good writer, Aaron said, breathless and almost exhilarated. Thank you, Daria said stiffly, still not turning around. You're not, she heard him snort with surprise, then laugh. I usually shift when I want to move quickly, he said. Well, perhaps you should have. Daria turned and the words died in her throat. Aaron stood beside her horse, completely gloriously naked. Oh, Daria squeaked, her face flooding with heat. You did shift. I did, Aaron said, amusement in his voice, then more contrite. I apologize. I understand humans are a bit more uncomfortable with nudity, Daria supplied. I was going to say lack of clothes, he said, nervous laugh audible in his voice. That's the same thing, isn't it? Despite herself, Daria turned back to look at him. He stood there with wide eyes and flushed cheeks, one hand hovering like he wasn't sure what to do with it. My name is Aaron, he said, confidence giving way to something more nervous. I know who you are, Your Majesty, Daria said, trying not to look below his face. He looked startled, then hopeful. You do? Then we have met before. You're the king, Daria said. Everyone knows who you are. His face fell slightly. But we have met before, haven't we? He asked, taking a step closer. I feel like I know you. Your scent. Daria looked away quickly. Please cover yourself, she said, pulling her cloak off and tossing it to him. It hit him in the chest. Of course, my lady. My apologies. I wasn't thinking. She heard rustling as he wrapped it around himself. When she looked back, Aaron had gone still, the cloak hanging loose around his shoulders, staring at her with eyes full of awe, a faint flush still coloring his cheeks. Have you ever heard of fated bonds? He asked breathlessly. Daria frowned. Yes, He smiled, sudden and bright as sunrise. Well, I think you are my mate, he declared. Daria gaped at him. No, he said quickly, shaking his head. In fact, I know you are. The moment I saw you, He laughed, the sound of pure wonder. It's like my soul recognized yours. Horror crashed over Daria. Oh no, she said. Aaron blinked, the smile faltering. Not the reaction I was hoping for, but No, you've been given a potion again, Daria interrupted. What? He blinked. A potion. Then understanding dawned across his face. You're her, he said quietly. The woman I fell in love with because of Melba's love potion. The one I forgot about. He took a step closer, the cloak slipping slightly. It was you, wasn't it? Daria looked away, her throat tight. Yes. Well, it seems you may have relapsed. Aaron laughed bright and joyful, completely at odds with the situation. I have not, he said. I clearly remember everything I've ingested since this morning, and I can promise you there was no potion involved. Then perhaps that cure didn't work properly, Daria said. We should get you to the healers. I'm perfectly fine, my lady. I assure you. You were just spouting nonsense about me being your mate. It wasn't nonsense, Aaron protested, almost indignant. You are my mate, Daria groaned, déjà vu washing over her. You don't even know my name. Aaron paused, considered, then smiled, soft and hopeful. Then let me learn it, he said, taking another step closer. Let me know you. He held out his hand to her, palm up. Will you let me court you? He asked. Daria looked at his outstretched hand, the same hand that had held hers for days. She wanted to run, wanted to protect herself, but she'd promised. So slowly, hardly daring to breathe, she reached down from the saddle and placed her hand in his epilogue. 3 years later. The wedding was everything Daria had once sworn she'd never want. Excessive, romantic, borderline impractical. Stop fidgeting, Alina said, adjusting the crown of white roses in Daria's hair for the 3rd time. You look perfect. Ridiculous is the word you're looking for, Daria muttered, eyeing her reflection. All this fuss for what? To give your king an excuse to cry in public, Lena said with a grin. Daria couldn't help the smile that tugged at her lips. He's ridiculous, isn't he? I think it's romantic, Lena said, securing the final rose. It had taken 3 years to get here. 3 years of Aaron patiently, persistently courting her, proving over and over that what he felt was real. Because even after that day in the forest, Daria had been terrified. How could she trust that the bond was real now when she'd watched him fall in love, with her under false pretenses? According to the healers, the potion had only intensified a bond. Aaron would have felt for her regardless. Fated mates recognized each other on a soul-deep level, but that recognition could be subtle. A gentle pull. The love potion had taken that gentle pull and turned it into an all-consuming need. Still, the damage was done, and Daria had a hard time trusting it. Aaron never complained. He'd courted her properly, let her set the pace, and when she'd asked, voice-breaking, how he could be so patient with her fears, he'd simply smiled and said, "Because you're worth waiting for." The door swung open. Aaron stood there in full royal regalia, eyes full of unshed tears. "You're so beautiful," he whispered. "That's it," Daria groaned. "Weddings cannelled." Aaron laughed. "Not a chance, a sums," he said. "I've waited too long for this." "Well," Daria pretended to think about it. "If I must." "Oh, you must," Aaron said and kissed her again. "Because I love you." Daria sighed, a smile tugging at her lips. "Yes, I know." "Good," Aaron said. Then he offered his arm, and together they walked toward their happily ever after.